The Mandalorian was the first piece of canon Star Wars media to set up the Imperial Warlords, and subsequently the new Imperial Shadow Council. This was well after what many thought was the total destruction of the Empire at the Battle of Jakku. So, how powerful is the post-Jakku Imperial Remnant really? Could the warlords of the Imperial Shadow Council have realistically challenged the New Republic? And if not, why is the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn such a threat to the galaxy? To answer that, we need to talk about the fall of the Empire in canon. Now, the remnants of the Imperial military before Jakku are fundamentally different from the Shadow Council we see depicted in The Mandalorian. In Star Wars canon, after the Battle of Endor, Imperial forces began to fracture and split apart. The various Imperial leaders and members of High Command fought against each other. Many different high-ranking Imperials claimed that they were the rightful heirs to the now vacant throne. Grand Moff Plurist, Grand General Levinus, Admiral Rolos, Grand General Kenner Loring, and Moff Ubric Alahard were all Imperials who believed themselves worthy of the title of Emperor. Many of them were deposed, but others served as serious roadblocks in the way of the New Republic. Loring, for example, formed a major splinter group of the Empire, while Alahard formed the Iron Blockade in the Anowit sector. This all takes place before the official Imperial surrender at Jakku. These warlords are the fragments of a still mighty empire, and are much closer to the warlords from Star Wars legends like Zinj. The warlords shown in the Mandalorian TV show and film, however, are from much later, and are the remnants of an already defeated empire. They are much weaker from what many may think of when they imagine an Imperial warlord, despite sharing the same title. While many officers attempted to form their own mini-empires, claim emperorship, or just acquire as much wealth as they could before slinking into the shadows, the Empire would still become unified under a singular purpose, if not a leader. The Empire united to enact the Emperor's final will, the completion of Operation Cinder. Countless worlds had their populations wiped out in a mass genocide, including many loyal Imperial planets, all as a part of Palpatine's plan to destroy the Empire as punishment for failing to prevent his death. Throughout Cinder, the Rebel Alliance, which was quickly forming into the New Republic, destroyed countless Imperial assets and destroyed entire Imperial fleets. As Cinder concluded, the Empire found itself on the back foot. Their major shipyards at Kuat were taken by the New Republic, and the Empire was once again leaderless. At this point, Fleet Admiral Gallius Rax revealed himself to Vice Admiral Ray Sloane, who had gained the loyalty of many Imperials. Rax had been the Emperor's protege and existed to fulfill the final destruction of the Empire. Rax worked to manipulate Sloane into unifying the Empire under her control, all to fulfill his mission. The two of them formed the Imperial Shadow Council, with Sloane ascending to the rank of Grand Admiral and Rax taking the rank of Counselor to the Empire, which, while technically giving him no power, in practice made him the Emperor in all but name. Rax and Sloane brought the Empire over Jakku for one last battle, Rax leading his followers to believe that the battle would be decisive enough to win the Empire the war, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The real point of this battle was simple. The New Republic and the Empire would tear each other apart, while Rax calculated routes into the unknown regions so he can assist in the creation of a new order. Additionally, he planned to detonate the core of Jakku to finish off the remaining forces to survive the battle. In the end, Rax's plan failed, and he died, but not before instructing Sloane to flee into the unknown regions and assume his title. As the dust settled, the Super Star Destroyer Ravager crashed into the surface, and the Imperial fleet was destroyed. After the battle and the death of Rax, Grand Vizier Mas Amedda issued the order for the Empire to officially surrender. Most Imperial worlds were relinquished, marking the end of the Empire as a government, but not the end of its military. Some trusted Imperials fled to the unknown regions to form the First Order, along with Sloane, such as Brendel Hux, who I will mention shortly. while those left over were ordered to disarm and were arrested to face trial as war criminals. Those who refused to give up their weaponry were branded as warlords, some of which became the faces of the new Imperial Shadow Council. Those members included Moff Gideon, Commandant Brendel Hux, Captain Gilad Pellaeon, Commanders Barrow and Janu Coin, plus 4 other officers yet to be named. The resources controlled by each of these warlords seem to have varied heavily. Barrow and Coin were shown to only be in control of meager ground forces, while officers like Moff Gideon had access to supply fleets, multiple bases, and overall commanded a great deal of respect. Despite all of these warlords being members of one Shadow Council, they scraped and clawed for the limited resources to use for their own agendas. The latter officer I mentioned, Gideon, is among the 3 most well-equipped commanders in the Remnant Council. The others are Gilad Pellaeon and Brendel Hux. Both are said to be hoarding resources for Thrawn's return. Pellaeon is the leader of the Shadow Council, while Brendel Hux is a crucial member of the First Order, and so he seems to be serving as a bit of a tie for the still hidden First Order and the remnants of the Empire not deemed valuable enough to bring into the fold. I imagine that Thrawn's forces in Ashoka Season 2 will be handed over to him from primarily Pellaeon. Gideon, at this point, has perished and his forces were destroyed. Commander Barrow and Coin likewise had their forces wiped out, and from the Mandalorian Grogu, it's implied that multiple other members of the Shadow Council were captured as well. While Hux may have ships under his command, his talents lie more in cloning, education, and indoctrination, so I imagine he will have more personnel than actual assets. This leaves Pellaeon as the main contributor of Imperial warships. While most ships would have been destroyed over Jakku, with the fleet the size of the Empire's, it's guaranteed that a few Star Destroyers would have slipped through the cracks and into the hands of a senior captain such as Pellaeon, for instance. Pellaeon himself was a Star Destroyer captain, and after the Battle of Lothal served under Vice Admiral Furno and the rest of the remnants of the 7th Fleet. While Furno surrendered to the New Republic, Pellaeon, as the most senior surviving member of the 7th Fleet at this time, would have commanded extreme loyalty. To be honest though, the forces of the Imperial Remnant don't really affect its capabilities in my eyes. Even if the Imperial Remnant had a massive fleet and a capable army, it would still fall against the might of the New Republic. As proven by the Rebel Alliance, numerical superiority doesn't guarantee a military victory. But that can only be the case with strong leadership, and I argue that leadership is what the Imperial Shadow Council lacks without Thrawn. As far as we have been shown, not a single Imperial Warlord has the skill to lead a full war with the New Republic. Moff Gideon was too concerned with his secret projects and his rivalry with the Mandalorians to ever properly lead a military force. Commander Coin showed some initiative with his control of the moon of Shikiri, but he was more focused on profits over any loyalty to the Empire or desire for victory. Barrow proved to be a lackluster leader and died fleeing for his life. Hux was brilliant, yes, and served as a crucial part of the First Order, but had limited experience in naval or ground combat. Another issue with Hux being that he didn't have much loyalty to the Shadow Council since he was in charge of creating the First Order, which was meant to replace the Empire. Lastly, we once again come to Pellaeon, and by far one of our most controversial claims to date. I don't believe Captain Gilad Pellaeon from Star Wars canon deserves the praise he gets as a naval officer. In Star Wars Legends, Pellaeon was a very, very skilled officer to be sure. He was no Thrawn, but he did serve under him and so picked up much of his tactical awareness. But in canon, Eli Vanto and Commodore Pharaoh take up this role as the right hands to Thrawn. Canon Pellaeon never got to experience what they did. We know from Tales of the Empire that Pellaeon did help Thrawn accomplish some of his goals, well before they officially began to serve together. But Pellaeon only fought in 2 naval battles under Thrawn, a small skirmish with Imperial Grand Admiral Savid, in which Pellaeon only lightly participated, and the Battle of Lothal, neither of which had Pellaeon displaying much skill. Canon Pellaeon is likely a competent officer, but by himself he was barely able to hold on to the Shadow Council. Again, I doubt he's a bad officer, but from the canon material it's impossible to judge his leadership fairly. However, he just lacks the experience that gave Legends Pellaeon his tactical prowess. The Imperial Remnant in The Mandalorian isn't like that of Legends or even the Pre-Jakku Warlord era, where the Empire is still largely its own state. By this point in canon, the Empire is already finished, it is formally disbanded, and it's officially relinquished control of almost every world under its command. The Shadow Council doesn't represent an empire that can have peace with the New Republic. It represents soldiers who have refused to lay down their arms and admit defeat. The role that Pellaeon would have to take up to lead the Imperial Remnant in a war against the New Republic would have to be that of a master strategist. He would have to become Thrawn, and you'll excuse me if I don't believe he can live up to that expectation. The Shadow Council could have everything it needs to destroy the Republic, but without a person at the helm, it can't utilize those tools properly. The Imperial Shadow Council and the warlords that make it up are not themselves much of a threat to the New Republic, but they were never meant to be. Individually, as I said, they scrape and claw for what limited resources exist in this post-Empire era, but together, unified with the right leadership, they are powerful. That's what makes Thrawn such an intimidating villain. He's the one man who can rally the Imperial Remnant together under one banner, as one empire, and use it to fight back against the rebellion. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if so, please consider subscribing. I have been Pre-Jakku Productions, and I will see you in the next one.